My name is John Boitnott, and you have come to From the Ground Up, which is a podcast put on by Grit Daily. And on this podcast, we talk to entrepreneurs, CEOs, leaders in the business world. We talk to them about their companies and their missions in the world, what they're doing out there. And today I'm joined by Tad Phelps. Tad is with Fintech, a company out of Tampa, Florida. How are you doing today, Tad?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, John.
It's great to have you. Talk to me about your company and your background first, and then what Fintech is all about.
Sure. Out of college, I started in the food and beverage business. I started a large hotel in Las Vegas as a assistant F&B, and spent about 13 years in the operations side of hotels and restaurants. And in the early 2000s, I decided to get into the tech sector like everyone was doing, and I went to work for a company called Radiant Systems that did technology for restaurants and C-stores and whatnot, and kind of got the bug and spent about 16 years there. We sold ourselves to NCR. 6 years I spent operating a few companies overseas, so kind of really interesting. And then I ended up in 2017, I ended up moving to Tampa and taking the role of Fintech. So that's kind of my background. What's Fintech? Fintech was founded in 1991. A lot of people, we've been around a long time from a technology standpoint. We're headquartered in Tampa, like you said. We pioneered really business solutions for the alcohol industry is how we started. Been doing that for 33 years now. We have a flagship product that people that know Fintech know about. It's called Payment Source. It's used in about 250,000 retail locations. About 5,000 distributors are tied into that piece of it, and suppliers. It's all nationwide. It's U.S. based. It's for retail and hospitality businesses. At the core, our system it automates alcohol invoice processing, streamlines payments for the three-tier system. We could speak all day about what the three-tier system in alcohol is. And it captures data on about 1 million B2B business connections and relationships, through hundreds of thousands of invoices each day. From that, that's how we started. From there, we've kind of grown our capabilities. We've taken those capabilities and expanded them into the CPG space and the DSD space. So while we still have a giant presence, and about 80% of our business is based in alcohol, over the last year or so, about 20% of that has shifted to being everything else on the shelves for grocery stores, restaurants, hotels, convenience stores, entertainment, stadiums, arenas, retail, you name it. That's essentially what we are.
Take 30 seconds and tell me what that three-tier system is, real quick. See what we think.
Well, alcohol is the only product that actually has constitutional amendments. So there's this whole thing on how alcohol works. And there's two constitutional amendments, one that made it legal again, one that took it away. But essentially it is that the alcohol business has to operate in three tiers. So typical retailers buy their products from a supplier. Sometimes they use a distributor to bring them in, but in the three-tier system, they're completely separated. A wholesaler cannot sell directly to a retailer. There are some interests, in smaller companies can do, direct wine deliveries, those types of things. But if you want to get Budweiser or Coors Light or Jack Daniels in Tampa, you have to buy it from a distributor. And that distributor is the only one that has the rights to whatever your location is. It has to pass from a supplier to a distributor and then on to the retailer. And none of those tiers can mix. And it really started because of prohibition and how all that happened, and how certain entities in Chicago bought up all three of them and hid tax dollars and did certain things. But so there's a lot of real stringent rules and regulations around how alcohol works that most people don't understand.
So you guys help basically. One of my questions for you is, how does Fintech help companies deal with changes in regulations? So how would you say that you guys do that?
Well, it's funny. We've been doing this a long time. It's not a lot of rocket science. We are so involved in the alcohol industry. We're panelists. We go to the shows. We have a whole division of people that help with regulatory affairs. We try to be on the front end of that. A lot of people call us, states and agencies call us when they're thinking about making changes because we've been doing it for so long. Yeah. So we're really in on the front end of a lot of that piece of it. And by doing that, we know what changes are coming on. We have a whole group that specifically inside the company, all they do is work on regulatory changes. So we're trying to be ahead of that game. Governments don't always help you with that. Sometimes they make changes that happen weekly. It's really because we've been doing just that for 33 years. We're kind of, I say it's not rocket scientists. We're built around having to make changes in regulatory things. So we have a group that all they get up every morning is they work on those pieces.
Yeah, the retail industry is always evolving, and how are you basically helping your customers, deal with the evolving and the changing in the industry all the time?
Yeah, I mean, we've seen a lot of things change over the past 20 years. Especially with the evolution of the online marketplace and how that's kind of changed. Since our goal is to provide tools that make businesses more efficient, able to compete in all aspects of this. What you said was an ever-changing marketplace, right? In other words, we have to innovate to make it easier and more cost-effective for them to serve their customers. Most of our clients are brick and mortar, so they're competing against this online piece. So um, for us, it's really listening to concerns, streamlining and automating their processes. One of the things we set out to do is make it easier for them to do business. And I think, probably the latest evolution we like to talk about is something kind of new to us is this whole scan-based trading thing. And that's one of the evolutions we're seeing out there is for a brick and mortar company to compete right now with online vendors, they've got to make some changes. And we think scan-based trading or consignment sales, we call it SBT, so we got to put initials on everything, acronyms. Um, but this has been around a long time. It grew up in newspaper, periodicals, and holiday cards and whatnot. But it's a whole technology that's transferring the ownership of the inventory back to the supplier, and the retailer doesn't pay for that inventory until they scan it at the point of sale. So we think that's kind of evolving where it's certainly something people are evolving to. If you think about being a department store that has clothing and you're competing with an online retailer, they don't have the brick and mortar costs. Um, if we have a process and that could take the inventory costs out of your equation, maybe you can start to compete on the price level too. So when people come in and try on those pair of shoes and then walk out and buy it from the online retailer because it was cheaper, if we can get those costs down, we can keep them in your store and they can continue to buy. And we think about that across all products because just about everything can be sold online now. But this model reduces the inventory costs, risks, suppliers gain better visibility into everything from the performance of how things are selling. It really reduces out of stocks. The platform is really a data-driven approach to inventory management that we're starting to see from everything from tractor trailers at supply companies to pets to
Yeah.
it. People probably don't understand bread is a SBT thing. When you go into your grocery store and you see them stocking the shelves, a lot of that is the bread company actually owns that product until it's sold, and it's going into produce and into milk.
Hmm.
It's been prominent in products that have a shelf life or have spoilage on them, and it kind of shares the risk on if you put too much milk in there and it all goes bad, you're sharing the risk on that now as opposed to it all being on the retailer who had to buy the product.
I
So
see.
you know,
Yeah.
it,
Go ahead. Yeah. I
I
mean,
was
you're.
gonna say it's a huge cash flow thing,
Yeah.
right? And it helps them compete on different levels.
So what you're talking about are ways that you're helping your business grow, and you're also, looking for ways to help, retailers grow. I mean, you work with a couple 100,000 retailers. Or what are some of, how do you maintain that market share? It's a lot of companies, and how do you find ways to grow yourself beyond, talking more about the ways that you're growing right now?
Yeah, that's a great question. For me, there's a couple things in there. First, it all starts with our people and their dedication to serving clients. We're blessed with great people. We take great pride in how we support people, and I like to tell people that 75% of our new business is referral based. We don't actually go out and get it. People come to us or people send people to
Mm.
us. So when you talk about, how do you maintain that market share? The first thing is to take care of your clients, and they help you maintain your market share. And then, we started expanding into products like we call it Payment Source Premium, which is simply expanding our alcohol invoice capabilities and our EDI and payment capabilities to every product on the shelves. and SPT, like we spoke about. Um, so we're encouraged. Our clients were encouraging us to go out and do these things from a market share standpoint. Automating the invoices, paying the invoices. It all started really from our market share standpoint and growing our business into expanding our TAM. Was when I got here, I had hundreds and hundreds of people tell me this over the first couple of years that, look, you're paying for our alcohol. Why can't you pay for our Pepsi? Why can't you pay for our Coke? Why can't you pay for our Frito-Lay? You're already in my bank account. I already trust you. I already have an invoice system. It works for alcohol. Alcohol is twice as complicated, 3 times as complicated as potato chips. Why would I want to go get somebody else? And we're just like, we had a lot of things to do in the alcohol business. And now, we finally have kind of said, it makes a lot of sense. So from a market share standpoint, we're starting to grow inside, call it wallet share or whatever you want to call it, inside the 4 walls because we have so many retailers on our system that it was their idea. So I think a lot of the things when it comes to market share and maintaining it, if it's something they want and you can provide it, it makes you a little stickier too, right? If I can pay for everything and I'm just not alcohol, I'm a bigger part of your business. And I'm part of how you operate, and it helps us from that standpoint. And it's, one of the things I didn't really completely uh, understand the depth of when I got here is that Fintech keeps 1,200 different interfaces to back office and accounting systems across all those industries. I think so. We have these rails into all these back office systems to be able to do EDI and to move invoices and to move information. And it was pretty simple since we're already talking to these systems to do, what Frito-Lay or Pepsi or whoever it was, to do those on the same rails became real simple.
Yeah.
And quite honestly, helps us with our market share. Now, we have a lot of clients that don't have alcohol in all their stores because of some state regulations, but we didn't have a product we might have 500 of their 600 sites. Now we have all 600 of their sites because we have something that they can actually use in the sites that didn't have alcohol.
Yeah.
So it's really helped us take our leadership in alcohol and transform that platform into going, more broadly across all the products they have.
Yeah. Sounds
And,
like
after all these clients came to us, that's how the Payment Source Premium stuff was born. And we've been doing really well with that piece of this. And, I think there's a lot of things that people get that they didn't expect when they moved over. The whole thing around it, a lot of people think about you process and you pay invoices. Well, there's a lot of other things that come with that. If you do them well, you grow your market share. And the first thing to growing market share is not to give it back every week and have to gain it back. So to grow from that, it's really about giving people visibility into their invoices, their annual, removing all these manual processes, and then it goes right back to great customer support and taking care of your people. So I think that's how we've done it, and we continue to grow.
Yeah, it seems like a pretty natural progression. You said, and then recently you acquired 2 companies. What are those companies? What was the process like? How did you develop an M&A strategy for them?
Yeah, I mean, so those were the 5th and 6th companies we bought over the last few years. They were both. One did a little bit in the alcohol space, but one was completely SBT, like we talked about, scan-based trading, and the other one was about half scan-based trading. So it's pretty interesting because we bought the number 1 and number 2 companies in that space and put them together. So it was really kind of us filling out our payment solution and our invoice solution. We could do all the products, but this new thing was coming out where scan-based trading and had a whole different type of platform and things you had to do. And that was one piece of the business is like a lot of ice in convenience stores is made through scan-based trading. Or when you think about Krispy Kreme donuts in those cases, it's all scan-based trading. Yeah. That was a piece of those businesses we couldn't go service. And when we wanted to tell people we could do everything in those 4 walls, we had to fill in that blank. So we went out and got those companies. M&A strategy is always, how do we go about it? We find holes in our product or things that we want to expand into that help us expand our TAM or offer new services into our install base. We could go through the whole strategy about how we go about that thing if that's interesting to you. But it's simply we put a list together of companies we think are interesting. We have conversations with the founders or the CEOs or the private equity firms that own them or whoever owns them. And, and you go through a lot of conversations and you determine whether they're willing to entertain being sold. But, first it's always, do we build, do we buy, or do we partner? You got to
Yeah.
look at all those pieces. We'd like to partner with a lot of companies. We've built some things that we couldn't find the right product fit for, like Payment Source Seed Premium, and that's really an AP automation tool. So we went out and built it. And then we go look at the companies, right? And if they're the right type of product and the right type of people and culture,
Yeah.
we do a little bit of due diligence. We make them an offer. If they want to do that piece of it, we go through a process. It takes we try to do everything within 45 to 60 days. So it's a really quick hit. We kind of, just, it's disruptive to both businesses so you want to do it as short and as quick as you can. Then we try to contract in the next 30 days and go about it that way. And it's great. We have two great PE partners in TA and GA that help with the process. And depending on the size of the business, sometimes we have to involve consultants and accounting firms, but most of the stuff we do internally through both of our partners and, our internal resources. And that's kind of how we look about how we do an M&A and our strategy. And, I think we'll probably buy 2 companies a year as long as there's great companies out there to buy.
Yeah. But you mentioned TA and GA, but it's TA Associates and General Atlantic, and they're backing you guys and a lot of what you do. And what's it like to be raising money from very established players like that?
Well, when you choose great partners, quite honestly, it's pretty straightforward. It's I think the hardest part of the process is finding partners that you want to do business with, that'll support you once the deal's done. You got to do your homework. You really got to know the firms that you're talking to, get past what I call the sales pitch part of it, and get to know them. And then, the process for us began by choosing a banker to represent us, to go out and find those right people to bring into the mix. And then it turns out, they get to understand your company and you understand theirs. And there's like this, I like to call it dating before you get married. And it's kind of speed dating. And you might go out and find 8 or 10 companies that you might want to do business with. And over, about 15 to 20 days, you shorten that list down to a few and you invite them in to really get to know you for a couple of days of looking under the covers and giving them a lot of information. And, spending a lot of time with them. And from that standpoint, you try to pick one that you think is best for you. So that's, obviously, what they're willing to pay always comes into it, but all things being equal, you want to pick great business partners. We've been able to do that. So for us, raising money hasn't really been a huge burden. Like I said, we have great partners, and they continue to invest in us to make more acquisitions, which is always a really nice place for us to be. And we think, when you go through this whole process, and it's the same, it's almost like M&A for them too, right? There's a whole due diligence process, and and we try to get that done in a very short period of time. The last 2 times we did it, under 4 months, which is when you're talking about those types of dollars, doing that kind of due diligence and spending that kind of money in a very short period of time is you're drinking through the fire hose, not the garden hose. So
Yeah.
it's a really interesting process.
Yeah. I mean, any red flags that you watch out for in setting up these relationships?
Me personally, I think I always worry about companies that have a playbook. When you look at a company like us, we're in a very niche market in the alcohol space. There's not 500 companies doing it. And there's some PE firms out there that have a playbook that's one size fits all, and they just slap it down and you got to operate by it. Wasn't something we were interested in. So we found people that would allow the operators to operate the business. Um, the really great thing about General Atlantic and TA is that they've let us operate the business. They're a great help when we need them. They have plenty of resources. They have great resource groups on things that we may not be able to afford to have, or we're too small to do it at a scale that they can do it at. And they help negotiate other contracts across their enterprise, and we get some buying power that we wouldn't typically have. But for me, the red flags are really try to find companies that aren't going to want to come in and take people that know the business and tell them how to run that business. They're buying it for a reason. It must have been good enough for them to want to invest in, so let them run it, and and help where you can. And I think that for me, when you find companies that don't have this playbook they want to slap on top of you right away, that's a big red flag for me if they want to try to do that, because one size doesn't always fit everybody.
Gotcha. Yeah. What's the best piece of business advice that you've received, and how does it affect how you do your job?
Wow.
I know, right?
It's probably a little cliche, but but all the really good people that I've ever worked for or admired had one common thread and said one thing, understand how important it was to surround yourself with good people.
Yeah.
Um, I always believe that if you're the smartest person in the room on everything, you're doing it wrong. And
Yeah.
I'm living proof that I'm not the smartest person in the room. So it works out real well for me. And I've been fortunate to have a really great team at Fintech and then a lot of my stops. And in my opinion, that's why we're really successful. And it's all because of them. And I think that's probably the best advice that people have given me is, hire people that are around you that are smarter than you, that are better at certain things. And, um, it always seems you got to kind of check your ego at the door when you do those things. And I think that's some of the best advice anyone can give somebody that's trying to build a business.
Yeah. Great advice, Ted. Anything else that you would want to mention about FinTech, the company, or anything else that you feel like you've not had a chance to say that you feel like you'd be missing if you didn't?
Well, I think it's kind of funny. We own the word fintech. People think about it as it's a tough business that when we market ourselves, when you try to do all your stuff on the internet. And I think we represent the market. We have a strange name that financial technology has become a whole industry, and we're an alcohol based company that's growing exponentially into other fields. And there's not a whole lot. I'd say just we're in an interesting place, and it'd be funny how many people call us and try to figure out what fintech is, or they want to buy fintech. So they think that's an entire industry. And
Yeah.
we're a small little alcohol based company in Tampa, Florida, that's growing leaps and bounds. And quite honestly, I think we will revolutionize. A lot of the things we're doing will revolutionize how the retail industry does, um, how it grows, and I'm proud of what we're doing here. That's probably what I'd leave you with.
Yeah. You won't be small, like you said, much longer. So growing by leaps
Well,
and
small's relative, right?
yeah.
Call me when we get to Amazon size.
I don't think I'll be able to get through then. It'll be, but no, great to have you, Tad, and have a great day. And thanks for joining us on From the Ground Up.
Appreciate you, John. Have a great day.
You too.